A man that has never run a profitable business, but also a man that prior to last year had never worked at a company that didn't double.
Fly around my plane, and Sam had a phenomenal episode. I picked him up at the airport, had the GoPro like right centered, and we had this great episode. Philly flew out of Wingsfield, landed in Essex County, and I get back and the audio had completely cut out. It was done. I didn't truly understand how revenue retention was linked to a sustainable growing company. And I created a war room where you would walk in and it had every wall had a cohort of customers. Myself and a few of the directors on the account management said, okay, we're going to come in early for a month and I want us to game plan. We're going to create these account planning war room meetings that, here's an interesting thing. I'm actually more bearish on AI than in terms of innovation. It validates a lot of your thinking, but it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It's just all very consensus thinking.
Hey everybody, it's Sam again, the host of Top Line, and I mentioned the other week that we've got a new show that we're rolling out in the Top Line feed that we call Revenue Blind Spots. It's a show I produce with Otter AI. Today we're going to be hearing from AJ Bruno. It's a show all about how you can overcome your revenue blind spots and hear stories from the front lines with go-to-market leaders out there in the B2B tech ecosystem. It's brought to you by Otter AI, who of course helps you eliminate blind spots through all of the technology and the AI tools that they provide you. We hope you enjoy it. We hope you listen. And the main show over the course of the next couple of months will be on the Otter AI podcast feed. Look for Revenue Blind Spots in Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your shows. Thanks for listening. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Revenue Blind Spots, powered by Otter AI. It's a monthly podcast exploring the pivotal moments in the careers of top revenue leaders. Our focus is to dive deep into the blind spots that have shaped your leadership strategy and growth, uncovering lessons that can help the next generation of revenue executives. Today on the show, we're delighted to welcome my friend, my co-host on the Top Line podcast, and a two-time founder of high growth startups, a man that has never run a profitable business.
Oh, Sam.
A man that prior to last year had never worked at a company that didn't double every year.
Well, I two-time founder, I was like, well, I have no revenue blind spots, so we're done. And then you hit me with this guy can't run a profitable, efficient business. Yeah.
He can't figure out how to record GoPros to record his own podcast.
Yeah, I can't. So Sam's referring to my own podcast, Value Props, where I'd fly around on my plane. And Sam had a phenomenal episode. I picked him up at the airport, had the GoPro right centered, and we had this great episode. Philly flew out of Wingsfield, landed in Essex County, and I get back and the audio had completely cut out. It was done.
So this person is AJ Bruno, the founder and CEO of Quotapath, and we just dove right into it. But AJ, before we get into your blind spot, of which you have many, how are you? How's it going?
I'm great. I'm feeling it.
All right. So AJ Bruno, CEO of Quotapath, in a previous life, president, right? You were president of Trendkite and
founder and president. Yeah. You're just dinging on all of the things. You weren't CEO, AJ. You were just president of that company.
Because
right?
I've made the mistake of calling you CEO before.
I take it. I own that.
You built the business for over $200 million, $220 something million to Cision. That was in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, the talk of the town in Austin, Texas. I was living in Austin in February, March of 2019, and AJ was the hottest ticket in town. This was the guy that just made it happen.
I got a billboard right next to the airport. You just drove off of onto 35 and you could just see my face, just smiling. Here I am, keys to the city.
And then, okay. You're running Quotapath. Quotapath, in my opinion, is the most adaptable incentive compensation platform in existence. You're helping transform the way that incentive comp is distributed and rewarded across organizations. Obviously, you started with sales. You've raised how much money?
Well, if you look at PitchBook, I think it's 70 million, but there's a lot of numbers in there. We've raised $70 million through Insight Partners. through Tribe Capital, HubSpot Ventures, Carta Ventures. So we have some really great funds that I've worked with
Yeah,
over the years.
great.
Prior to that was at Trendkite was Adam Street Capital, Nora Mosley, Battery Ventures, I think was probably the brand name recognition that got all the highlights. We had Niraj Agarwal on our board. And yeah, I like, my revenue blind spot that we're going to talk about, which I do have many, Sam. I have lots and lots of them. And the one we're probably going to talk about today, I've like made twice. So
Oh,
don't
okay.
learn from my mistakes, apparently.
Well, let's hope you don't make it a third time. So let's dive into it. So the purpose of this show is a little bit of humility, a little bit of vulnerability. You're very good at doing that, AJ. You're an inspiring leader in that way because you always come with authenticity. And we're talking about blind spots because, Otter AI, Otter helps us make sure that we don't have blind spots because Otter's everywhere that we can't be. So if you haven't gotten your Otter license, by gum, you should get it. But now we're talking about AJ Bruno and Quotapath. So tell us about a blind spot. Tell us about a time in your career when you were focused on something, caught you by surprise, and what happened.
In 2016, Trendkite was growing. You mentioned 200%. I think we had just actually come off of a 300% growth year, and I was running that team, founder and president. I did actually have some operational responsibility in that role, which was the go-to-market team, the entire go-to-market team. So it was new business, sure, SDR, top of the funnel, and then also the account management and the renewal part. And we were raising our Series C, and this our CEO Eric Huddleston, who had brought in at the Series B in the Battery Ventures round, he came to me and he was like, AJ, Adam Street Capital is going to be here. You have this guy Jeff Deal coming in, and he's going. I have to be in Chicago for a different investor meeting, but I want you to just run the show, like take him around the office, sit down with him, talk about our sales methodology, make sure that the management team is on top of it. And like this is my bread and butter. Like my company, I know this team in this company so well. I know everything inside and out in terms of our revenue model and what made it tick. And so the day comes and Jeff comes, no nonsense guy, awesome guy, but no nonsense. So we sit down in our boardroom, in this giant boardroom. It's just one-on-one. And he pulls out a binder. And I'm like, oh man, where is this going? And he opens it like 30 pages in. And he goes, hey, tell me about Google. They churned last year. What happened there? And I was kind of dumbfounded because Google had churned. It was the like one account that had churned. And I mean, I knew about it, but we had 1,000 other customers, 4,000 customers that were like Hershey's and Nike. And I thought he was going to come talk about this like great brand Snapchat that we just brought on that was paying us $300,000. But no, he sat down and wanted to talk about revenue retention. And he literally hammered me on our gross revenue retention, which at that time was 78%, I think I want to say, Sam. And I didn't understand in context what 78% meant because I was so focused on that top line growth number of just ensuring that every year, triple, double, apparently. I never made that third double, but I didn't truly understand how revenue retention was linked to a sustainable growing company. So we went through it, and ultimately Adam Street and Jeff did the deal with us.
Oh, they did do the deal. That's great.
Yeah, they were great partners throughout, but it immediately flipped my brain from that day forward to like understanding how revenue retention and protection of that revenue that you've already brought in is so key and so important to the business. So I started to study models and understand over time what that would look like and how we were a bit of a leaky bucket. We didn't have much of an upsell motion. So not only was it 78% of GR, but it was also like only 85%, 90% NRR, which I think for a lot of businesses out there and today that they're struggling with revenue retention, maybe that resonates well. For at that time in enterprise SaaS, that was like really bad, unheard of bad. So we had to fix it, and I had to like move quickly and urgently to fix it.
So tell us about what you did to fix it. Like, how did you, and was that meeting with Adam Street Capital, was that sort of like the first real moment
Yeah.
when you realize that like chasing new logos wasn't the thing that really like sustainably drove enterprise value?
Yeah, I think a lot of CROs, certainly during this time, it was just like, hey, let me throw that over the fence to customer success. Like ideal customer profile, sure, was talked about. Product market fit, sure, was talked about. But when you're growing so quickly and you're hiring, it felt like it was a distraction and an annoyance more than anything, because it's like, well, we're growing so fast. Like I don't need to really worry about this thing over here. That's CS's problem. That's not my problem. Um, but
Even
president
when
of the
you were
company, I
president of the
own it.
company, yeah.
I owned it. So I this was in 2018 and interested. Well, 2016. So the next year, I reframed my focus. I actually had great lieutenants running the sales team. I had a director of sales, Justin Papermaster. Justin was the director, and I was like, Justin, you got to just like own the new business. It's a little bit on rails at this point. I have to spend all of my time in AM and account planning. And so what we ended up doing is just like manually, I created a war room where it was one of our conference rooms where you would walk in and it had every like wall had a cohort of customers dating back from like 2013 when we first signed on. It would be just like a long page of all of the customers and literally just looking at it one by one. And myself and a few of the directors on the account management, I said, okay, like we're gonna come in early for a month, every month, and I want us to game plan. We're gonna create these account planning war room meetings that we will have with each of the AMs and on the team. We'll start with the AM directors. I think there were 3 directors at that time, and AM director ran a team of like 6 or 7. We're going to go through this one by one, and we're going to look at full story. We're going to look at usage, and we're going to focus solely on leading indicators of churn and understand why did they buy TrendKite and are they successful? And then we're just going to ask that question for every single question or every single customer. And we went through it. And it was a long process. Like I wish we had some level of AI, but I think it was a really important process to do manually. Even today, I would say that this is a really good exercise because we got to know our customers really, really well. And I hadn't spent much time talking to our customer at that time. TrendKite was born out of a experience I had at a previous company, Meltwater. Knew we were going to have product market fit. Everyone was looking for BI, and I didn't really understand how important some of the foundational things like data trust were for customers. If we missed an article, okay, that's a churn risk. And what do we do about that? And so we asked that question for every single customer, literally every single one. And then we bring the AMs in and we would go through use cases. We would watch full story sessions and understand where they were deriving value and where they weren't and get ahead of it and just like proactively were able to see things that we wouldn't have been otherwise seen.
And so what was the impact on GRR?
We went from 78% to 86% in
That's
a
pretty
year.
good.
Yeah, and then and 90% plus NRR. Our multiple on we sold the company for an 8.9x multiple, which was pretty good. I think GR still dinged us in the end a little bit, but I know that it was said on the acquisition, like the 5 quarters that we had of sustained improvement to GR was definitely taken into account of like these are successful customers and they're going to be successful customers at Cision as well.
Well, that's a great story. My one question that's begged, I think, when you talk about it like that is sort of the traditional commercial perspective that GRR is solved through account management and CS as opposed to product. Were you putting pressure on product at the same time, or you just felt like I can only control what I can control?
Yeah, it was the latter. And interestingly, at that time, my perspective of this has changed for sure. I really thought it was a CS problem and a sales problem, a pre-qualification potentially problem, which I think was a part of it, a symptom. Sam, you and I both were on a call when we were talking about CS leadership. And one of the things that a mutual friend of ours said was like, well, your CS leader is only going to move the GR number 0.5%, not, and product owns the rest of it. I don't necessarily buy that per se. I think depending on the situation, they have a great CS leader and it can be accountable and own a process that can up GR substantially like we did at TrendKite, but I do agree that product is the main driver to your retention of your customer.
So how did this inform? I mean, I think what you're articulating is a common problem for all sales leaders because there's such an emphasis on new logo acquisition and sales velocity. What was the and you but you did you mentioned you made the mistake twice. Did you make the same mistake at Quotapath, or how did that translate into your next experience building a company where now you're the CEO?
Yeah, I can do it better. I have no revenue blind spots. I think it was the same but different in the sense that we were so Quotapath started more on the SMB, and we started down this path, which was like the wrong path, but helped inform us later, which was PLG. And when you're doing product like growth, and we just had an interview with the CEO of ClickUp, when you're doing this like PLG play, you have to have a really large TAM, a massive TAM, and because you're going to have churn, you just are. And like a lot of companies think about this in more of a B2BC. They actually cohort this differently, and like, yeah, it's going to be 50% in and out. It's going to be a leaky bucket, but we're going to use that to help sell to the enterprise, so to speak. And that can work really well. But if you think about the 2018, 2019 world, and when we were born in that world with Quotapath, what sales teams looked like, most sales teams were growing and expanding. And it was still a very growth at all cost world. And so we viewed our TAM as, well, there's 10 million salespeople in the US. Like, of course, that's like a massive TAM. Maybe, but it's changed so much that the SMB has, like, not just from a seasonality standpoint, they've helped inform what to build, and you have to work really hard to build to them, but they still have a lot of challenges on the churn. And so as we've moved more to the mid-market, which we found a lot more success, the complexity of compensation plans actually remains the same. Small teams have the same problems as large teams. So if you have a small team and you have the same problem and the margins aren't as high, and even worse, you might have operations folks that aren't sophisticated and have a lot of data hygiene issues. Well, square that with a mid-market company that might have a lot more resources at hand to be able to help there. We've realized that like that was kind of a little bit of a mistake for us in the first 5 years of just like being like, oh, okay, we're going to fit SMB only.
But so have you abandoned SMB?
No, not at all. We've just looked at different ways to service them that aren't Quotapath, because we don't have a professional services. So for example, like HubSpot has a really strong solution partner ecosystem that helps with implementations. And so they're already really adept to these operation fields, objects inside HubSpot. Salesforce has something similar called solution implementers. But for HubSpot, working and partnering with them to help offload some of the services ops costs that we were occurring in the early years.
Do you it's hard to wean yourself off, like one of your big partners is HubSpot and they're feeding you, are they feeding you SMB deals? I mean, sort of to the point of the first example, it's like it's so easy to sign people up, but if you know that they're not going to be successful, it's got to impact your enthusiasm at a minimum.
It's this every day I wake up and was like, I just have this like sign that just says smile. Just like make sure you smile. It is a lot. I get gut punched. I feel like a punch in the gut when a customer is frustrated with us. And I still feel that today. And when you have 1,000 customers, you're going to just have that, especially with the complexities of sales comp. And not everything's your fault, honestly. A lot of challenges that have existed in organizations that can blame a tool, but at the end of the day, it's really on them. They're just looking for something to blame. So I just feel for our customers if they're not seeing success. By the same token, I think specifically more recently, we're seeing so many great use cases for customers that have just like, it worked to a scale that it just didn't get a single question from the account management team.
That's great.
Awesome. Yeah. So that feels good.
So let's relate this out, in closing to I guess advice. So if you're giving advice to people, if you're giving advice to revenue leaders, go to market leaders, particularly in a world, I know you've got strong opinions about, the rapid growth of these AI first companies, and they're all reporting 20 million, 100 million. I think I did. Alcid was saying Cursor got to 400 million. I was like, that can't be true. I did look it up. Apparently, they are at 300 million uh, in ARR, which is crazy. So
Insane.
if you're a revenue leader at one of these fast growing AI native businesses, what advice do you have for them?
I literally talked to a CS leader at one of these type of companies in the go-to-market AI first. It was a go-to-market AI first. And I just asked her point blank, I'm like, what, why are you looking right now? And she was like, you know what? And she's already told her company that she's leaving. So I'm okay. I'm not going to share the name or the name of the company, but she's like, about 3 months ago, the board made the decision of we got to grow as fast as possible. We got to grow at all costs. Literally every dollar in doesn't matter where it comes from. We just have to get there.
Oh my God.
And I don't have an interest in leading a customer success team where that's the case. So I just raised my hand after being there for 4 years saying like, this is just not the type of company that I want to be. And we've pivoted 4 times, 4 different product lines to get where we are. I understand what's going on. And I just looked at her and I said, I just don't think that that's going to be a winning formula. I can't see how that will be a true winning formula, but maybe I'm wrong. And maybe there is a winner takes all for for go to market AI, for vertical SaaS AI, whatever it is. I would say if you're in that position where you're like these kind of this, okay, the needle is moving that we just have to grab as much revenue and show a big number. It's like, well, what are you trying to, what is the organization ultimately trying to achieve? And what does success truly look like? And just if you hold on to your values and you feel really strongly that it's not the right play, then stick to it and just be like, yeah, and do what this person did, which is like, I'm raising my hand, and this is just not, maybe someone's a good fit for this type of play on the CS side of just like throwing like customers into a bucket of stuff and marketing to them, but maybe not. So I appreciate that, and I've learned that in my career, that the right type of revenue matters, and we're still working on it. I've said I've made this mistake twice. Our GRR for SMB is not where we want it to be, and we've got ways to improve that. But I'm focused on what I can control, and that product roadmap and linking the voice of the customer and the customer success leader into to product roadmap, so critical and important. Make sure that that's a really tight relationship in your organization.
Absolutely. Last question for me before we pay it forward a little bit and get some influences. But AI, you mentioned this go-to-market AI business, but how is Quotapath using AI? Let's Otter's an AI
Otter.
company.
Yeah. We use Otter. Interestingly, it's funny how these are coming together because like I feel like there was email cadences where some of your team was using ToutApp, someone was using Yesware, some people started using SalesLoft and then Outreach, and you had all Groove, and you had all these just desperate systems, and then they kind of got consolidated up. It's where it is with like a lot of these note takers, where
I know.
and so I use Otter, and some other people on my team use other products, which I think is interesting. But I'll call out some the AI that we like that's not competitive in the Otter bucket, which is Momentum. Momentum is a tool that we know our friend Kyle Norton has also a stage 2 company has talked about. We onboarded them and
What does Momentum do?
they automate all the workflows. So if you're talking to a prospective customer and they sign a contract, takes like everything from all of your calls, you might have had 5 calls, and synthesizes the handoff notes of
Oh,
like
that's
why
cool.
Quotapath and whatever, and then that gets transformed. And then for your customer success team, okay, we talked about these 8 different types of comp plans. Let's synthesize what those comp plans would need to look like to get directly into Quotapath, so the CS team can just like get a head start on onboarding. That's one area. We use Cursor. I was just on a call right before this with one of our new team leads. Kobe just got promoted to a squad lead of our engineering team.
Absolutely.
And I was asking him about this, and he was saying, Cursor is so interesting in the sense that there's so much opportunity that our team sometimes doesn't even know where to start with it. Really good for quality QA and finding bugs, but then can be careful because it can lead you down the wrong path. And so, how do you have production ready quality code in an existing code base that you can create from an AI tool? We're still figuring that out.
Are you feeling more confident or better about AI Copilot coding? I remember we were trying to figure out if it was actually
Had a lot of
great as
conversations. Here's an interesting thing. I'm actually more bearish on AI than in terms of innovation. We were using it for deep research for a project that we're working with HubSpot on and coming up with use cases. When you start to read all these like memos and deep research, it validates a lot of your thinking, but it doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It is just all very consensus thinking. And so it helps in just like triggers, but it ultimately is just more of a word vomit, bot breath, as you like to say. I'm noticing that in emails, sure, but just across any communication that we have, except for podcasts. Here we are.
No, I am on the margin today less bullish than I was maybe like 2 months ago. I was having it analyze a legal agreement, a fairly important legal agreement for my life. And it's like, oh yeah, be aggressive on this point. I was like, you sure? So then, and it's like, absolutely. And I almost took the advice. And then I went back and looked at the language of the contract because I'd uploaded the contract into ChatGPT. And I was like, it doesn't say what you said it says. It says something subtly different. I'm like, oh, you're right. My bad.
Sorry, can't sue me.
Yeah. Okay, then.
I
So,
do love that. There's on Reddit, there was a post that someone said, take this image and recreate the same exact image 73 times. And it is wild what it did and transformed the person from one ethnicity to a completely different ethnicity and like also just made them angry in this whole thing. I'm like,
I,
whoa.
I think like the it's not correct a lot. And remember
We
what
take it
Benedict,
as gospel as well.
I
We're
know, I
okay
know.
being like, yeah, I'll just sign this contract now that I see it.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good. That means that there's still a role for human beings. AJ, you are a consummate listener of podcasts. You are an avid reader. What's a book or a podcast or an idea that you think we should know about?
I know I shouted out on Top Line the Acquired podcast for specifically for Epic, but actually I just finished the Mars Inc. Acquired episode. It's a 3.5 hour episode and very, very private. Like it's a private business, but like the family is super private. They've never done interviews except for one time in the 90s. And so the amount of research that the guys had to do, David and Matt, I forget his name, had to do for this was unreal. And I had never heard the name Forrest Mars before, but he is
Is
real.
the candy company?
The candy company. Yeah, it was super interesting. So a couple things that were like from an entrepreneur standpoint. So his dad actually started the business. It's a long story. They started Snickers. Snickers, the like the most popular candy bar in the world. And he had to move. He got like exiled basically, and had to move over to the UK. And he restarted Mars. It's Mars Bar, which is technically a different bar than the Milky Way, but it's the same kind of ingredients, and it's just was made with Cadbury chocolate at the time. And then he kind of pushed out during World War II of Mars Inc. So then he came back to the US, started a rice company, which is Uncle Ben's Rice, and then started, and I'm like, don't want to spoil it, but then came back into the family business because he started M&M because of a joint
That
venture
guy is a
with
genius.
Hershey. Well, the joint venture with Hershey's is insane. He didn't go to Milton Hershey's family or trust. He actually went to the president of Hershey's and said, "Look, I'm going to give you equity in this joint venture for your son, and it's going to be called Mars and his last name was M, so whatever Mars, not Milton, but Mars and I forget the name M&M." And so they started this as it, and then they used Hershey had a direct like a exclusive agreement with the U.S. Army, and it was during World War II. and candy bars were packed full of energy. And so M&M became the single supplier, not available to the public, only available to the army
That's
during World War
where
II.
the candy coated shell, melt in your mouth, not in your hand, because you had to like carry them around if you were a soldier.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly what it was. And they're like, "Oh, you can have it all day." And he had this like whole like of course showman like Steve Jobs-esque thing where he walked into the president of Hershey and like he pulled it out of his pocket and like had this like handkerchief and like goes, "Voila." And the guy's like, "What? Eat that." I tried it. It's candy, it's chocolate candy. And he's like, "I took that on the train to get here. I had it all day in the hot summer sun and it didn't melt." And that's how he sold it. It was
That's
cool.
pretty cool. That's great.
Great story.
If folks want to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in touch, AJ?
I'll just give my email. You know,
Yeah, I think that's a
here it
good
is.
idea.
I've stopped giving LinkedIn. AJ at Quotapath.com. Shoot me an
Awesome.
email. Reference Otter. Reference this podcast, and I will gladly talk to you.
Thank you. Thanks for being our guest on the Revenue Blind Spots podcast brought to you by Otter AI. If you want to learn more about Otter, go to otter.ai. A great company, does great call recording. And AJ, thanks for being our guest, and I'll talk to you soon. And if you don't listen to Top Line, AJ is one of the great co-hosts there, as of course I
Not
am.
the greatest, apparently, according to AI, which we found out lies anyway. So
That's all. You're just not the glue. Thanks a lot.
thanks, everyone.